So you had this clerk of courts, and the clerk of courts is like, I don't know if you're a football fan, Ashley, but
Oh, yeah.
it's like an offensive lineman in football, which is the only time you hear their names generally is when they commit a penalty. Generally, you don't want to hear their names.
It's
Out of sight,
awesome.
out of mind. Those are the best ones.
That's a
Well,
really good analogy.
oh, thank you. Yeah. Well, here the clerk of court became a star because she decided to write a book. Oh, and the defense lawyers there said, "What do you mean you're using information that's from the inside and writing the book? Oh, and you plagiarized material from another book." And so that was an embarrassment. She lied to the court. She apparently leaked information. But you know what she's not going down for? She's not going down for tampering with the jury.
Yeah.
This guilty plea is not about tampering with the jury, obstructing justice, and it won't, in my mind, affect the conviction of Alec Murdaugh, who will stay in prison forever.
And I agree with you. I don't think it will affect the decision of the jurors. But I do think it's interesting to look at how it plays into it because so what happened was when this happened, they went and interviewed the jurors. And we have a case here in Georgia. It's a death penalty. They've got an execution set for next week, and it's the same issue. And so I've actually been looking at this issue a lot, where you go back and you interview jurors, and the jurors talk about what happened in the jury room. And I think that this case it highlights that. So they went back and they interviewed all the jurors, and they said, did she influence you? What happened? And they got affidavits from them. And one of the jurors, I thought it was really interesting what she said. She was kind of ambivalent, and this is really the juror that's at issue. She first said that it did affect her verdict. So at first she said it did.
Right.
And then later on she said, well, I just stand by my affidavit. But her affidavit said that the other jurors pressured her into a verdict. I cannot tell you how many times a juror calls me after jury service and says, I was pressured into
Yeah.
a verdict.
And you know what you tell them? Too bad, because
like that and I don't know if you do this, but I ask the jurors always ask me, why did you ask those questions in voir dire? I asked them what position they had in work. I asked them how they resolve conflicts. I'm trying to determine if you're going to get pushed around, and I literally spend so much time in trial trying to weave in strategies to empower that holdout jury, because that holdout juror is who I'm talking to, and our law says you don't need to abandon your convictions. But we all know what happens in the jury room. And I think this case is one of those prime examples. They get bullied, and then later on they come back and they say, I changed my mind. I was bullied.
That's a great point, because we prosecutors like the opposite. We don't want people who are going to say, I know what's going on here, follow me. No, no,
Right.
no, no, no. Like lawyers, we don't like other lawyers being on juries.
Right.
Apparently engineers,
I love engineers. I love lawyers.
right.
I love it. I love
We don't
doctors.
like
Love them.
engineers. I still don't understand why we don't. Can you explain this to me? My colleagues try to explain to me why they hate engineers, because they're so precise. They want to see everything from point A to point D.
Yes, yes.
Is that
It is because nobody likes to see how the sausage is made in criminal justice. And there's a lot of error rates, and it's really an inexact science. And I think that a lot of prosecutors are worried about engineers picking it apart, because it's not a mathematical certainty. Nothing is, everything is subjective. So that's why I love engineers. I've had jurors with half a dozen engineers. Love them. Think they're great.
Wow. What about clerks of courts?
Not this one.
I mean, yeah, she's humiliated. That's part of it. That's why she's not going to serve jail time. I think part of it was that she has absolutely disgraced herself in a small community. Her name is now synonymous with lying, with plagiarizing, with trying to be the star of a show that wasn't
Oh
her
yeah,
own show. And so I think the punishment has fit the crime. She didn't. If I tell you, if the
it does.
verdict had been overturned, I would think differently. But
Oh yeah.
since it hasn't been overturned, okay.
Yeah. Well, before we move on, I want to share one thing about the Southern clerk with you. So, just to put a little perspective on it, if you go into a small Georgia town, which I've tried cases in many small Georgia towns, and the clerk of court recently, I had a case in a small Georgia town, literally called the jurors who didn't show up for jury duty, was texting them from the courtroom, why aren't you here yet? It was classic. You'd never have something like that happen. Said, oh, I saw so and so on the jury pool in church, and they knew about jury service. And I was just like, this is crazy. There's nothing wrong with it, and I actually like it's endearing, but it
That's
just tells the dynamic of the clerks.
that's well here down in South Florida. Although I'm out of town right now, as you can tell by
Yeah.
my background at the Motel 6. The here in South Florida, what happens is that you get calls all the time with, you've missed your jury service. You must pay me $5,000 or else
Oh
you'll
my
be
God,
sent to
yes,
jail.
yes.
Yeah, and I know people who've been uh, conned by that. So if you're listening to this, that's a con. That's a scam.
Yeah.
Hang up the phone.